lived in Southern California, and they would be surfers.
Clearly.
I have them all worked out.
100%.
I know. We'd be vegan. It would be great.
I'm dying to ask you a question because it's something that it's been ruminating in my head. Our parents, they pass on more to us than our DNA.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes as I get older, it's like I find myself saying things my mother said or behaving. You somehow, it seems, and when I see how you handled talking to your children about your cancer diagnosis, the compassionate, sweet, mature way of not overreacting and taking it to death right away, you seem to have flipped what your parents have taught you and become like I'm going to say it, like a functional, wonderful mom.
Mm-hmm.
How?
All right, well,
God.
Before we talk about my functional, wonderful motherhood, I just want you to know I posted on Facebook yesterday that I called my daughter out of school sick. And
I read it.
I called the wrong school, and they go, she graduated 2 years ago. And I was like, oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, I have to follow you.
So before we say how functional I am, let's
my gosh, it does seem like something Jennifer would do.
Let's keep it real. Exactly, but that's the thing. When I posted that, I really thought, people aren't going to find this funny. They're going to judge me, whatever.
No.
I have 100 and some people that liked it, and probably 30 comments of mothers going, "Oh my God, I did the same thing."
Wait, do you know
Can
how
we
many
take
times
the veil off of motherhood?
Yes,
like how
it's
freaking
like,
hard it is.
Do you know how many times my kids have stayed home sick and the school has called me because I forget to call and say they're not coming in?
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm at a doctor's appointment. Like, I don't have time for this phone call. But of course, in their heads, they're thinking, oh my God, her kid got on the bus and
Something's
didn't get
wrong,
into
blah, blah,
school.
blah. Yeah.
A total respect. But like, I'm like, and there's no excuse.
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask you, just your sister, right? Mm-hmm. Everything you went through, you weren't in a bubble that it was just Lockey experiencing it, right? It was a shared experience. Mm-hmm. She went through many of the same.
No. Okay, so I'm very cautious. The hardest part of my book to write was writing about my sister because we were sort of going through it together, but she had her version and I had my version. And meaning she didn't get, my father didn't do to her what he did to me as far as I know. Okay? She was never in the back of the van with me, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But that said, I weighed every single word that I wrote about her in the book because she has 2 children that are grown. They're adults. None of us have a great relationship. Big shock. We're from a broken family. But I want to pay as much respect and offer as much compassion as I can because that's her story. And I wrote in the book and I said, you know, if you read this.
You started out saying that this is my recollection and not my.
This is not, so I don't
Has she
talk
read
about
it?
my sister. Yes.
And did you guys have a conversation about it?
We had a texting conversation. She did not like it.
And she has,
And she has the right to not like it. And I get it. I totally
what it
get it.
is.
She has the right to not appreciate, I hope that someday she can at least understand that I needed to get this off of my chest and that I never, ever meant one disrespectful word to her. And
Is that she felt disrespected by this book?
yes, she told me that I was a disgrace and that I was disgusting.
Well,
So
That, I mean, there's
she had
certain
her reasons, and I understand.
Okay, no, I was thinking there's certain reactions I could think of, but
I think we're each on our own journey.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And
and
how
definitely
we
you're not
move through
disgust.
life.
There's no.
Well, I don't think I'm disgusting.
Right,
I actually think I'm kind of cute. I don't think I'm disgusting.
I could see my family even different things I've done being like you're a disgrace, but like disgusting. You're the least disgusting person in this book.
Well, thank you. I actually had people go, "How come you didn't write about me in the book?" And I'm like, "Dude, is this really the fucking book you want to be in?
Right.
Like seriously, this is the book you literally want."
Well, wait, that's a question. Has anyone approached you to make a movie? Or are we
No,
not
that's
allowed
what
to
I'm
talk
waiting
about
for.
that? Because I got to say, then maybe people, because when
I'm waiting for that.
reading
Especially the funeral with your mother, where you're just like,
Oh, you have no idea. Oh my god.
fuck it. This is
but reading it, I'm like,
a circus, and I'm out of here.
But
And
this
I'm not
is a
taking care of
movie.
Daisy either.
Daisy. Stupid
I'm
Daisy.
like,
and I love
who tells someone at a funeral, oh, are you taking your mom's dog? And by the way, will you be taking care of your mom's dog? She loved you and your sister. Like, the
they
people
all love
say
that,
what
yeah.
they say because it's so cliche.
But they don't know what else to say. And
They don't know what else to say, and that's
Yeah.
it. And silence is not appropriate, I guess, or it's not
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I don't think any of them knew who the fuck I was. I literally
Really?
don't. How could they know who I was?
True.
Like, I don't think my mother had one picture of me in her house.
Yeah,
It's
funerals.
like,
Funerals
Wow.
are a hive for crazy.
it is. And the thing is, I don't hold. I want people to be crystal clear about one thing about this book. I didn't write this book until I had let go of anger. If any one person from the funeral, if any one person even from my family, the remaining members, whatever, if any of them came up to me, I don't hold any ill will toward them.
Yeah.
And but I will say, I will never apologize for one word that's in that book, because every single word in that book, I weighed, I measured, I checked in with it. I literally wrote that book as authentically as I could. So yes, people have approached me about it being a series on Netflix, and one person said it wouldn't be a movie, and other people said that it could be on Netflix and stuff. So if anyone knows an executive producer or a screenwriter out there, give me a call.
Ming Chen. You just used 3 words, and for anyone, we probably should have said this in advance. Lockey is a phenomenal yoga teacher, and she teaches yoga, and that's your job, right? Quote unquote, that's your job. I have a hard time calling it a job, but it is. You use the words which all we ever hear in yoga is let it go, breathe in, exhale, go, blah, 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 right? And most people don't understand what that means. It's just become a cliche Has it become a cliche throwaway? I don't know. Can we all kind of agree? Like, even like, let that shit go, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Hashtag
saying you
blessed.
were...
What did you say?
Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag gratitude, right?
Namaste.
You're saying that you were able to let it go, right? And I listened to a different podcast you had done, and you said really poignantly, really self-aware. You were like, if you met me 5 years ago, you wouldn't have liked me.
You wouldn't have.
Before I was able to let go of these things, I was like a burden to be around. Mm-hmm. So what took you from a place of living through all the things that we've touched on that you've lived through, although we have not touched on murder yet?
Murder's coming soon. Don't worry about it.
Right. But we've touched on a lot of things, like where did the yoga come in? Where did the healing come in? Do you feel like you're healed now? Does yoga play a part in that? How the hell are you able to teach other people yoga, much less men? Like, as a yoga teacher for as many years as I have been, when I read through this, I'm like, how does she show up in a room and handle the personalities and the energy and it's remarkable to me. So, like, give us, since this is a yoga podcast in a sense, like, give us your yoga, your dharma. It is. This is your dharma, I guess, you know?
I think it is sort of my dharma. And the first thing I want to say is I literally write the first chapter on yoga in the book. The first sentence of the first chapter is when I first started practicing yoga, I was an asshole.
Well,
I was horrible. I know. And that's, girl, I live by that.
Yoga, because punching people is frowned upon. When
no-
I read that, I was like...
But it's true. But here's the thing. It's very... when I first started practicing yoga, I was coming out of breast cancer treatment. I was a personal trainer at the time, and I literally could not lift my arm, my right arm. I couldn't lift it out.
Neuropathy.
You said you couldn't get a cup of coffee in your hands.
I couldn't lift. Yeah, I had to. If I wanted to drink coffee, I had to hold it like this and drink it, right? Because I had a mastectomy on the right side, and eventually had one on the left side too. But they had cut certain muscle, the pec major and the pec minor. There's the whole thing, right? So I had very little range of motion. So a few people said to me, "You should go and practice yoga." So there's a yoga studio in my town called Aloem. It's in Cranford. Do you know Gina?
Yep.
No, I haven't been there. I've heard
Gina
about it.
Pachkowski owns it, and she's amazing.
I know Gina and Karen Gilmore.
Karen Gilmore is my...
She's an amazing person.
I love Karen.
One of the greatest kids yoga instructors
She really
I've
is.
ever seen in my life. I've taken my kids and kids yoga is awesome. I'm not a kids yoga teacher. It is not my best thing by any stretch of the imagination. This girl, I sat there and I was just like, you were born to do this.
She's like the kid whisperer. Literally like the kid. I mean, she's amazing. So, and she's an amazing
plugging
artist.
that studio, Cranford, New Jersey.
We will be
Cranford, New Jersey.
plugging certain studios and
Yes.
teachers during the show.
LOM.
And Gina, I hung out with a little bit the first. I was assisting my friend Vanessa Van Noy at Wanderlust the same year she was assisting Sean Korn. Mm-hmm. So we saw each other, and we've just run into each other. She's come and taken my class at Even Flow, stuff like that. And we like hung out a little bit. But she's very close with Sean.
Yeah, she is. She's very. When I first started practicing yoga there, I was a little intimidated by her because, you know, she knew yoga and I didn't, right? So
And she looks like a fairy. She's
literally-
stunning, and she looks like a fairy.
I always tell her that she looks like the mom from.
Modern Family.
Yes, I know. She always goes, "No, Lockey, I don't." I'm like, "Girl, I'm telling you, you do." I'm gonna tell her you said that.
Just send her.
Now it's true.
Now it's true. I have backup.
Send her this link.
Oh my God! I
All
have
we've
to
done
send
is
this
talk
to
about her
Millicent
studio.
thing. That's so funny. But
Be like, you've never been so plugged on a podcast.
exactly. But anyway,
about you.
I know it's all about Gina. So when I first started practicing yoga, I would go there and like I was all in my head about it, and I was trying to do it right, and I didn't know what the poses were, and Virabhadrasana 1 and Virabhadrasana 2. I would be doing Virabhadrasana 3 instead of 1 because I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but I didn't want to admit that. And then Savasana came, and I was not okay. So here's the thing. As a trauma survivor, not yet knowing, well, no, then I did know I was a trauma survivor.
Yeah.
To put a trauma survivor on their back and say,
Teachers,
"Turn your
take
palms
note
up."
of what she's about to say.
Yeah. I felt like a bug. I literally felt like a bug. Like my shell was down below, and I was completely vulnerable. I hated it.
So get this. The first class I ever taught on 9/11, it was, so by the way, my dad texted me about 20 minutes ago, "Bridget, I am watching your podcast. It is actually extremely informative."
Thanks, Dad. Oh, thanks, Dad. Is he on here? Who's watching this?
You
How
are
do we
great.
know?
I am very proud of you. I was like, thanks, Dad.
Will he adopt me?
So I remember I was teaching a class on 9/11 in, I guess it would have been like, let's say like 2011, right? Maybe. And I went online and typed in before I taught, when I was thinking about like my Dharma talk before it, 9/11 and yoga. And an article came up that might have been like New York Times, something like that. And they wrote a whole thing about people immediately in the wake of 9/11. A lot of studios stopped doing Savasana because people felt so vulnerable being asked to lay back in a building in the city, knowing
Yes.
what had happened in New York, that they actually collectively, without talking about it, just let it start to become like a seated meditation for a couple months, and there was no expectation of people feeling like they had to play dead after what the city had gone through.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to me because I think it's almost easy for us to wrap our minds around when it happens to a big group and the world sees, but there's probably a person in every single class who feels uncomfortable with the idea of playing dead.
Well, here's the thing that I learned, right? So I also teach yoga in the school systems in Newark. And ironically, Kay Deer worked with us and made yoga pants for all of our teachers.
She did the
She's
blue
amazing.
stripe.
Shout out, right?
The
She's
Newark,
amazing.
well, you're
Yeah.
with the Newark Yoga Movement. Is Deb Kaminsky still?
Debbie Kaminsky,
right?
yeah.
And she's a phenomenal human being. Deb and I met years ago through the Global Mala.
Yes.
The first year that I did it with Reggie, we supported the Newark Yoga Movement, and she definitely came down. And she was also here. There was a big music show. Remember when Michael Franti came?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah.
they had a yoga thing before it with the like acro yoga group. And they were all down, and Christine was here, and I remember everybody had on the Newark Yoga Movement pants. That program's, it's huge.
It's amazing. But here's what I learned. I started out as a teacher for them, and now I'm on the board because I love the organization. I love Debbie, and I just love what they're doing in the school systems. And a lot of those kids, I sort of identify with them because I feel like I fell through the cracks, you know? And I feel like a lot of these kids fall through the cracks.
Yeah,
What these kids taught me was I was doing yoga one day, and it was in a room with about 60 or 70 kids in a gymnasium, and they were all over the place. I couldn't even get one pose, let alone Shavasana. So when it came time to do Shavasana, I said, typically we lay down on our back, we turn our palms up, and I explained this is what you would do if you went into a studio, because I didn't want them, if they'd been to a studio or if they ever went to a studio, I didn't want them to feel awkward, right? I wanted to prepare them.
Totally.
So I said, if you went to a studio, this is what you would do. I said, here's the thing though. When we teach in yoga, especially in a gymnasium with a lot of kids, we have the boys in the front and the girls in the back. That way when the girls bend over, the boys don't make comments, whatever, right? So I said, here's what I want to do today. Let's try this and just see if it works. Let your body take whatever shape it wants. If you want to sit up, sit up. If you want to lay on your side, on your back, on your belly. If you want to stand up. If you want to, not, you can't go sit on the bleachers though. That was the one, they had to stay on their mat, but they could stand up, sit down, lay on their side, whatever. I would say 90% of the girls sat up and did not close their eyes. And the boys, I would say about 85% of them rolled over onto their stomach and laid on their stomach. And within less than a minute, they were silent and in Shavasana.
So this is interesting. There's been studies that have been done between, I believe it's teenage girls and their level of vulnerability and safety. When they're in a safe zone, when they're in a like monitor class or whatever it is, and what they feel. And a lot of times girls feel threatened.
Of course.
But boys, never.
Well,
never. They don't feel threatened. They always feel protected and not and cared for.
Yeah.
But it was specifically studies done, like whether it's in a classroom atmosphere or something where they're monitored. But girls always feel threatened.
Well, you have a daughter, so your fear factor will be there. Mother, daughter, son. I would be lying if I said I don't have more fear about, we're at a park, where's Sadie versus where's Patrick? Like, I am hyper conscious of that. And I think it starts at a very young age. And it's funny, my dad, we used to laugh because there's 3 girls than my brother. And we were allowed to do certain things, and then Michael was allowed to do different things. Even though he was younger than us, he could ride his bike like to Danny's house, which was however far away. And I remember we would be like, that's not fair. I couldn't do that when I was 9. And my dad would go like this, double standard, get used to it. And he would mean it kidding, but true. That it was just, the comfort level was different. My parents weren't letting me go down the Point Pleasant boardwalk by myself when I was 8 years old. But for him, with 2 other little guy friends, which I do think we live in a different world and boys are heavily abused. I don't think it's talked about as much, but I think it's a way bigger problem than we're addressing. But the fear factor is still for that little girl.
Yeah.
And it kills me that you didn't have people in your life that had fear factor for you as a little girl, because as a mother with a daughter, that feeling should have been fierce. And it blows my mind. I do have a question when you said falling through the cracks, and it's a personal experience I had. So I taught CCD. My sister was supposed to. She was like, I'm not doing it. My mom was like, Bridget will do it. I was like, great. So now I'm teaching I'm like the assistant of a CCD class. There were 2 little girls in the class that were cousins.
How old were you when you were teaching the CCD?
I was like a senior in high school.
Oh, okay. So this is not current.
No, I was like and that's why this is important to me. And I can't get it out of my head. I have wondered my whole life since however 19 years. There were 2 little girls. They were like second graders. And they were cousins, and the one came to me and she said, I have to tell you something. And I was like, what? And she said, my cousin, I don't remember what the girl's name was, is her mommy's boyfriend is touching her. And I was like,
wait a minute. She said her mommy's
boyfriend is touching her.
Her cousin or her?
The cousin.
Oh,
and she goes, she's afraid to tell anybody.
Aww.
So I went and told the church. Like, I went and told the head teacher and and it was like the last day of CCD. So I never saw them, and and I went home and I was like, I hope I did the right thing. And my parents were like, you did the right thing. But I've thought and wondered in my head, did anyone do anything, or did that girl fall through the cracks?
Yeah. So
reading your book and listening to your story, were there people that were there along the way that you told and you spoke to that should have stepped up?
No.
So there was never a moment that you told someone and they,
no,
you could have been helped.
It's not like I was hiding from telling them. You have to understand, while I lived in Florida, remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
All you cared about was surviving.
Exactly. So when I lived in Florida, who was I going to tell? I had a teacher who asked me to help him find a new weed dealer. And I was like,
you were like, yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So I helped him find a new weed dealer. So it wasn't happening there. And then when I moved back to New Jersey and I was living with my paternal grandparents, you think I was going to mess that up?
Ruin.
I wasn't messing. That was a good thing.
And I think
It was
too,
like, I got a good gig going on here.
But you were so savvy at that age to know a lot of kids, because you were a child, wouldn't have been so savvy as to say, like, okay, well, this is better than what I had, so I better not fuck this up. Like, your brain shouldn't think. Look at your kids. Would you even want Lara to have to think that way?
I think
You want her to be street smart, but not have to have that.
no, I don't want her to
Yeah.
have. I don't want my daughter to have the survival mode. But I do teach her and I've told her from the very beginning. The thing with trauma survivors, and especially women who have been abused, especially if they were abused in childhood, the first thing to go is their gut instinct, because the abuser sort of negates their gut instinct in a psychopathic kind of way. Like, you should trust me, and in your body you don't trust them. So I tell my daughter, I tell my son too, the first thing you do is you check in with your gut. If you go to a party and you lied to me and I told you you weren't allowed to go, and you end up at that party and something goes sideways, you call me, you get a free ride. I will not, you won't be grounded, nothing. But if something comes up in your body that says, I don't need to be here, I don't care how you got there, I don't care what brought you there, I would much rather be pissed off at you for one day than mourn your death. And I'm dead serious about that. That is like my number one parenting rule. And that is non-negotiable. So, and my husband feels the same way. We're very much in partnership about that.
I also wanted to say one thing, because I think it's important for people to hear. When you say you fell through the cracks, you were the student, you got good grades, you didn't create a problem, you were doing what you needed to do. There wasn't any outwardly warning signs. So it was kind of like they didn't, I don't want to say they didn't see you.
They didn't
were
pay attention.
Looking for you.
Right.
So I think that happens a lot.
Yeah.
That children do what they think they need to do to like make it through, and there's no outward warning signs.
Right. And the funny thing is that a lot of times when women like me share our story,
And it's not their fault.
no, it's not our fault, but the first thing that people say when you go back and tell the story or you share the accounts, the first thing they say is, why didn't you leave? Right? Where are you going to go? Where, as a child, where was I going to? Okay, now there is somebody behind me. Where would I?
Yes.
Okay. Where would I have gone?
This is Dalian from 13 Hands. He is a phenomenal musician, teacher.
Just checking in. So there was, if there's nowhere to go, where are you going to go?
Right.
And if you have, if your resources are, if you don't have any resources to be able to figure out what you need or help you to figure it out, where are you going to go?
Also, as sick as it is, that was your normal.
Exactly. And that's the other thing. I never realized that all this stuff happened to me. That's not true. I never realized that the level of
That you were living a
trauma-
nightmare.
Exactly. I never
'Cause it was
realized it until
normal
I started
for you.
writing the book. And a therapist that I see now, who's the best therapist on the planet, was like, girl, do you have any idea what you're processing now? And I go, I'm
Right.
not processing it. I'm just telling you about it. And she goes, what the fuck are you talking about? She goes, you blocked it out. You completely negated everything that happened to you. You pushed it away. You pushed it away. You pushed it away. You
That was
never
survival.
processed it. Right. She goes, you never processed it. She goes, now you have to process it. And that's why you had mentioned before, do I feel healed now? Yes, in this moment I'm healed. But tomorrow I might have a trigger that brings everything back.
It never goes.
Beyond triggers, do you continue to have flashbacks? Like, is
Yeah,
the
I have
story
flashbacks.
complete? Like, when you think about, I picture your life in my, like, when I thought about it, you know, like when you're trying to put together a puzzle. So, like, you get one piece, you get two pieces. All of a sudden, the picture's, like, taking shape, but you're still like, okay, I have to fill in the right corner, the left corner. Like, is the puzzle done?
No, and I think here, okay, so my flashbacks were visceral, meaning I felt them in my body first. I was punched in the face, I was kicked in the stomach, so I will feel pain in my face or a punch in my stomach, and then I'll start to go, okay, a flashback's coming. Like I'll feel it in my body first, meaning visceral, right? So it'll come up that way first because my brain I can't put it in a chronological order. So then I'll see a belt buckle. I have a very vivid flashback of a belt buckle and a pair of not cowboy boots, like motorcycle boots. And I know that pain came after that. And that's it.
How did you know it was real? Because, I'll tell you, I watched Bird Box, and I've now had nightmares for 4 days.
Yeah.
Which it's not my story, but, I'm now Sandra Bullock.
It's
and I know it's not real. How did you know that it was real?
For our podcast listeners, she does have a scarf tied around her eyes.
Could you imagine, I really take on the persona? My children were out in a garden, and I'm listen to the sounds. But that, movie, that movie freaked me. You should be, after seeing that, Netflix is the right people to do it. I hope someone in their family is watching.
You know the best line
It's
in the
already
movie,
happening.
right? Sandra Bullock said, "I was raised by wolves." I was like, "Girl, yeah."
Wait, tell me. And I heard this. I was listening to an interview with her. With Sarah Paulson, who plays the sister. Mm-hmm. And the people, it was on EW, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, did you not think it was going to be the hottest lesbian couple of all time?" And Sarah was like, "I know, people thought that they're sisters, but at the beginning, she comes in and Sandra's painting."
Yeah.
And they were we were all please let them be married to each other. And I was I thought that too. I was please let them be this beautiful couple that's going to survive this horrific experience. But how did you know it was real?
I used to question it a lot because I didn't have a frame of reference. I had a therapist at the time who was like, "Girl, something happened to you." She would get freaked out when I had flashbacks. And then my husband was actually the one who convinced me that it was real. And because I asked him one time, I go, "Do you think I just have this weird memory thing going on? Do you what do you think it is?" And he said, "Honey, I know you. You're not that good of an actress." And he said, "When I walk in and I see you laying on the floor, bawling your eyes out, and you don't know how you got there," he said, "You can't fake that.
Right.
You can't fake the fear, the anguish, you can't fake that feeling. It's a bad. It's not something I would wish on anybody, at all, ever. And you."
And he really gave you the space to allow you to have, I don't want to say the experience of the flashbacks, but he
No,
gave
I
you
had to have that.
validation
Yeah.
and encouraged you to go into bringing it to the conscious and dealing with it.
Yes, and I'm not going to lie. In the beginning, I white-knuckled it. And I fought it, and I did everything I could. I always say, there's some bar in New Jersey where there's a bunch of therapists who have a meeting every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and they're like, "Did you see that bitch?" I'm like, "Yeah, Lockey, yeah, I saw. She was my client for a while."
You've seen them all.
I apologize to all the therapists that I've broken. I was horrible. I was horrible to I was vicious because that's how it would come out.
That is what kept you alive.
I want you. It is.
But how did
my mouth it's that it used
Piece
to
of your
be
personality
vicious.
is what kept you alive.
Yeah.
How did your husband marry someone? He married someone who's not you.
Right. That poor bastard never saw it coming.
But wait, now you're so much better. You said I wouldn't have even liked you 5 years ago. I love you now.
Well, yeah, but he loved me no matter what.
Yeah.
And I always say that of the men in my life that literally saved me, it was my husband, my uncle who's in the book,
Your son.
my grandfather, my son, and my husband's father and his brother-in-law, Fred. They're the men in my life that really restored my faith and my trust in men.
The fact that you can take that list off one hand, given what you lived through and survived, that was one of my main questions. How are you able to be intimate with a man? How can you, for anyone who doesn't know, Lockey has taught yoga in men's jails. How can you open yourself up to men in any way?
Okay, so I teach yoga in non-traditional places, and I don't take it lightly. I really want to be able to share what I learned about healing trauma so that I can spread it out there, right? So we're not doing headstands and, pigeon well, we do a version of pigeon pose, but we're not doing the more complicated poses. Sometimes in the places I teach, we don't even get off the mat.
You've said a lot of it is breathing and mindfulness practices, and
Yeah.
it's the emotional to the mental, probably.
It's the connection.
Yeah.
And if I can make the connection, then we can start doing the poses.
Right.
Right. So, but that said, I don't go into any place without a clear head. So when I was invited to come and teach through the Newark Yoga movement, I was invited to go and teach incarcerated men yoga. The first thing I did was I said yes. The second thing I did, I said, honey, I got a new job. And he went, that's great. And I went, he goes, where? And I said, the jail. And he went, no. And I went, yeah, it's happening. We got through that. I went to my therapist then. And I said, I want to make sure because, my mother was murdered. The case is still unsolved. It happened in New Jersey, blah, blah. There's a...
You could meet a person who was that guy's drug dealer, boss in the gang. You could meet him.
Yes. And that was why I wanted to make sure I didn't have some kind of thing, some kind of, weird need to put myself in danger, whatever, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't ego, because if for any reason it was ego, I'm not going to be able to offer them, or I won't have the words that they need to hear. Do you know what I mean? Because to me, the yoga teacher is just the vehicle.
Right.
The yoga teacher is nothing but a
I say this
vehicle.
to my teacher trainees all the time. You are the faucet. You're not the water.
Exactly. And people will say to me, the people that I teach in, shout out to my friends in Perth Amboy. I teach in Perth Amboy at a drug and alcohol rehab facility, and I absolutely adore teaching them. And some of them will say things like, well, if you're not here, I'm not practicing yoga. And I'm like, that's not what this is about. And you don't have to get literally all twisted up to practice yoga. You can sit in a chair and breathe. You can roll your shoulders back. You can open up your heart. That's yoga.
Right.
And if you're not doing that, what's the point?
Yeah, because it does need to extend outside of four walls of a
Yes.
class.
Yes. And I always say, practice in here, connecting to your breath, seeing what it feels like to go inside. Because a lot of these people have never gone inside.
Yeah.
And then when shit goes sideways out in your life, you can use that in your little toolbox. That has nothing to do with me. And if anyone thinks that I have some kind of special yoga or some prescription for healing, I don't. You've come to the wrong place. All I am is a vehicle to share what I've learned in my little toolbox of healing trauma. And I tell people, it's like trying on jeans in a store, right? You might be Lucky Brand, and you might be True Religion, and and I might be, I don't know, Jordache. I'm fucking old. I don't know. But you have to keep.
Although
trying
it's
them
so
on.
old, it's new again.
I know. I've heard they're coming back. I hope they do with the little things on the pockets. They were so cool. I love them.
Agree.
We just took a left down to Fashion Lane.
Well, and we also really need to wrap up because I have to pick my children up at the bus.
All right.
Can you come back? We're not done yet.
I would come back anytime. And I really want to say thank you. Thank you for helping me share my story. Thank you for helping me get it out there. And really thank you for doing this, because it's not, you both get it. That it's not about,
Well, I hope to see you
Something that it
soon at
isn't.
Inlet Yoga. I think we're working on some dates.
We are.
There.
Melissa's,
So Lockey
So-
will be at Inlet Yoga. I believe March 31st. I have
think
to
it's the
confirm the date. I do
oh
not
no,
want-
it is, my husband's birthday is the 30th. And if I do an event on his birthday, then I won't be married anymore.
Oh, no.
After all this, that's what it
Yeah,
would
right.
take.
That's
I
what
do
would,
not
nah.
want that.
Well, I will
He's
say
unbreakable.
February 24th, Lockey is joining me at Honor Yoga in North Brunswick. She's going to speak on a panel that's going to deal with self-care and self-love, which,
Yes.
as you've said, there's a lot of silver linings to your story, and I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity for you to share that aspect, which I love.
Yes.
And that's beautiful. And then at Inlet Yoga, we're going to be looking at a book signing. I'm throwing this out there. It's your studio. It's not me. I wonder, do you ever go and, teach a class before you speak, since you're a yoga teacher?
I totally would.
That could be really,
okay.
Yeah.
that
I'd
could be
do
really,
that.
really
great.
fun
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally would.
Oh, it's such a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much.
But so you're
I
going to keep
appreciate
us, so that date, we're not doing the 31st.
We
Because
are
I need to put it on my
confirming.
calendar.
It is to be confirmed, but stay tuned.
I
Inlet
think-
Yoga.
Yeah, the 31st. Because like I said, I know I can't do the 30th.
Well,
So,
I'm
but we'll
I'm
confirm it.
Google calendaring right now, so tell me if it changes. Inlet and Lockey.
All right.
I put exclamation points just to make it real.
That's what makes it real.
That's
right?
what makes it real.
Well, no
Well-
little heart emojis.
That would have made it more real. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone who signed on and came and hung out with us. We really appreciate
Hashtag
it.
blessed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hashtag a girl
Jason
raised
Olsen,
by
if you're
wolves.
watching this, that was for
Oh,
you.
Lockey, actually, I'm sorry. Give us all of your links. Where can people find you on social media? How can they where can they order your book? Give us everything.
To order my book, you can go to agirlraisedbywolves.com. To follow me on Facebook, it's A Girl Raised by Wolves. To follow me on Instagram, it's Lockey Maisonneuve, no space. And once you get the book, you'll learn how to spell my last name.
I'm gonna spell it.
See how I
Just
had that in?
if you are on Instagram right now, it's Maisonneuve. So follow her like right now.
Please do.
Her link is in the bio to order the book. It's all the hookups, right? Mm-hmm. It'll make it easier.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
So we are so grateful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And we will have her again, but she will be with me at Honor on February 24th.
Mm-hmm.
She'll be at Inlet in March. So come to something and let's talk in person.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ming.
Thank you, Ming.